Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our first case of 2025. I hope you all had a great holiday season. It feels good to be back to normal again. I've got a mysterious case to bring you today, and I won't waste any more time getting right into it. Today, we're talking about a 20-year-old man who vanished without a trace back in 2002. It's truly a mysterious one, and there's a few red flags that could have something to do with his disappearance, or maybe not. This case is unsolved. My sources are in the description area. This is episode 139, The Case of Joshua Guimond. This story takes us back to 2002. The Wuhan seafood market opened in China. If that sounds familiar, it's because 18 years later, in 2020, it would be widely reported as the first location to experience an outbreak of COVID-19. American businessman Steve Fawcett completed the first solo around-the-world balloon flight in a balloon called the Spirit of Freedom. The top song of 2002 was How You Remind Me by Nickelback. Halle Berry became the first black woman to win an Oscar for Best Actress. Kmart, WorldCom, and Napster all filed for bankruptcy. The average person spent 46 minutes a day online. Minimum wage in the U.S. was $6.75 an hour. And in weird news from 2002, a look into Social Security Administration revealed that parents were really naming their kids some odd names in 2002. Some of the names included Whisper, Timberland, and Baloney. Can you imagine being named Baloney? Anyway, if you were born in 2002 and you have a decent name, you got lucky since parents were really coming up with some whoppers during that time. Joshua Guimond was born June 18, 1982, to parents Brian and Lisa. I've watched interviews with these parents, and they both seem like such lovely people. I got a really good vibe from them. They divorced when Josh was young, but maintained a good relationship. Joshua was born and raised in Minnesota. He was their only child. Josh was an exceptional student. He played baseball and football, but a shoulder injury put a stop to that partway through high school. Because he still wanted to be involved with the teams, they made him the play-by-play announcer at the games. He was the student council president and the valedictorian. He was also voted the most likely to succeed. Joshua had dreams of being a lawyer and a politician. At 16 years old, he petitioned his city council's teen curfew law, and the councilmen were all super impressed by him. Even his email handle was Senator Joshua. This kid was seriously driven and incredibly smart. He graduated from Maple Lake High School in 2000. He went on to attend St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota, where he is majoring in political science. St. John's University is an all-male college and campus. It's closely connected to the College of St. Benedict, which is for female students only. Both colleges require that their students live on campus for 4 years. Tuition is currently $55,000 per year, not counting any housing and food and books. On the campus sits St. John's Abbey. It's a monastery that opened in the 1800s and is still operating today. It houses over 100 monks. Some of these monks are priests, some are teachers, professors, and craftsmen. At the time of our story in 2002, Joshua is a junior in college. He lives on campus in a dorm with a few other students. It's not real clear how these dorm rooms were divided. I think each student had their own private unit, but they were right next to each other. I know there's multiple floors, and Josh and his best friend Nick had their own floor, but each had their own private room. The other guys lived on other floors, but they were all still roommates, and they all hung out together frequently. Josh had a girlfriend named Katie who lived on the other side. She attended the women's college, St. Benedict's. Joshua and Katie had broken up within the last couple months, but remained good friends, according to Katie. They had known each other since childhood and had been dating since they were in the 10th grade. I mentioned a moment ago that Josh was very close to one of his roommates. His name is Nick, and they have been best friends for a long time. They were on the school's mock trial team as the captain and co-captain. Now, there has been a lot of speculation that Nick and Katie were attracted to each other and allegedly seeing each other. I don't know how deep this possible relationship was since Katie and Josh had just broken up, but they were rumored to have shown interest in one another. Josh had a mock trial just 1 week before he disappeared. His dad attended and said Josh won several awards that day, and he was super proud of him. Josh was going to be an amazing lawyer someday. Let's go through the timeline of everything that happened on Saturday, November 9th, 2002. For 2 hours in the morning, Josh was using his computer for a research paper he was writing on Alexander Hamilton. It was also during this time he was using AOL Instant Messenger with Katie. Around 12:30 p.m., Josh heads to the campus library to get books to help with his research paper. He returns to his dorm, and we know this because he swiped his key card to get in. Each student has their own key card unique to themselves. Josh checks his email. He checks the college's movie schedule to see what would be playing that day. At 4:00 p.m., he prepared a document for the pre-law society budget meeting that would be held the next day. He did an internet search for the 1985 film Brewster's Millions. This may have been what the campus was showing that day, and Josh wanted to see what it was about. Josh had dinner with friends between 5 and 6 p.m. Josh and his friend Alex go back to the room and hang out and drink a couple beers. Then Nick shows up, but he doesn't stay long since he's going to go hang out with Katie. Nick invites Josh to come along, but Josh had other plans that night. Josh and the other guys were going to head to a friend's dorm. A man by the name of Nate was hosting a poker game, and there's this small party going on there that night. It's not some wild college party, just 10 or so friends getting together to play poker. Josh and his friends leave their dorm around 11 p.m. to walk to Nate's together. They don't have to drive because it's only a 3 to 5 minute walk across campus. I remember being young and leaving for parties at 11:00 p.m. That would never happen these days. I'm asleep by 11. There's a little bit of a discrepancy in this timeline because Josh used his key card to enter back into his dorm room at 11:06 p.m. I think this would be because he forgot to grab something. Maybe he had to go back and grab more beer, but he entered and then left the dorm room again at 11:06 p.m. This dorm room where the party is being held is just a 3 to 5 minute walk from Josh's dorm. He arrives at the party and there's about 10 people there. Josh knew most of these folks. They were his fellow students and they were friends. It wasn't like he showed up to a party full of strangers. Josh plays poker and consumes some beers. He wasn't at the party very long, less than an hour, but I've heard he consumed between 7 and 10 beers during that time, but he wasn't sloppy drunk. He was maybe slightly tipsy and that's it. I don't know if this beer count is accurate. When you're at a party with a bunch of other college kids who are drinking, you're not really paying attention or counting how many beers the person down the table is consuming. If you're counting drinks, it's probably yours. Unless Josh was drinking from a 12-pack sitting next to him and they saw there was only a few beers left. But others could walk up and take a beer out of the pack too. But we know Josh had a few beers before he went to the party, so they could be factoring those in too. A little after midnight, Joshua gets up from the table. He doesn't say a word to anyone. He just leaves. These people at the party figured Josh had gotten up to use the bathroom. They didn't realize that he had walked outside. Josh didn't bring a coat that night. He was just wearing jeans and a gray St. John's hoodie. This is late November in Minnesota. It was in the 20s that night, so Josh was likely walking straight to his apartment since he wasn't dressed for being outside more than about 5 minutes. Friends at the party say Josh seemed completely normal. He wasn't sad or angry or showing any real emotion at all. He was just playing poker like normal. But then he got up and left. They didn't even realize that he had exited until someone said, Josh has been gone a long time now. The person who was hosting the poker party said Josh seemed fine the whole time he was there, and the others backed this up. They say he had a few beers and then he got up and left. He said everyone thought that Joshua went to the bathroom, but after he didn't return, they assumed he was tired and went home. It's unlike Josh to up and leave without saying a word, but he did for whatever reason. Josh's best friend Nick says he came home from Katie's around 2:30 a.m. and peeked his head into Josh's room and he wasn't there. He figured maybe Josh hooked up with someone and was staying the night somewhere else or a million other things. He didn't think much of it. It's not clear if any other roommates were home at the time, but we know one was out of town for the weekend and one came home after 3 a.m. The next morning, Nick logged into AOL Messenger to see if there was anything from Josh, and it showed Josh was last active over 12 hours ago. For perspective, if this took place in 2025, let's say you had a friend that's always on Facebook all day, every day, and you see that they haven't been on in 12 hours and no one can find them. Something is terribly wrong. Josh's key card never re-entered the dorm room that night. It only did once at 11:06 p.m. when he had to run back and grab something and then walk to the party. Josh never made it home from the party, even though it was just a 3 to 5 minute walk. The next afternoon, Joshua has this important mock trial practice run he's supposed to attend, and Josh would never miss this. He's the captain. The rest of the team waits around, and he doesn't show. They figure it's odd. Maybe he drank too much and is hungover, but that would be really out of character. Education was more important than anything else to Josh. A few of his teammates try to call his dorm, but didn't get an answer. They head over there and see Josh's car is sitting in its assigned parking spot outside of the dorm, so he couldn't have gone far. They find out from others that Josh had attended this poker party at another dorm last night and got up and left a little before midnight. Joshua also had a meeting with the auditor of the school's pre-law group today. Joshua is the treasurer, so this was a routine meeting, but Josh never showed up. Nick calls Katie to see if she heard from Josh, and Katie said no, not since they talked on AOL yesterday. Now everyone is super concerned, so they alert the campus police that Josh is missing. On Sunday night after 10 p.m., Josh's mother, Lisa, received a call from the school's dean to inform her of the news. This is like every parent's nightmare I cannot imagine. The dean tells her she needs to call the police and report Josh missing. The Stearns County Sheriff's Department arrive at Josh's dorm and do a walkthrough. They don't find anything out of place. They see Josh's coat, which makes sense since he left wearing only a hoodie and jeans. His glasses were still there. I also read his contacts were still there. This doesn't make sense to me because he should be wearing one or the other. Both of them shouldn't be there together at the same time. It's not real clear if it's his contact lens case without the contacts in it or his lens case with the contacts in it. His wallet, passport, and credit cards were all still there, and his car keys were there. His car is sitting outside in its assigned parking spot. The police learned that there were two students who were a couple who were walking around that night, laughing and talking and trying to stay warm. When they crossed the footbridge that is near Stump Lake, this footbridge is between Josh's dorm and the poker party dorm. They said they passed a guy walking towards Josh's apartment. He was wearing a gray St. John's hoodie and the hood was pulled up over his head. They confirmed this person looked exactly like Josh, and this happened between 12:15 and 12:30 a.m., which is right after Josh left the party. The guy didn't say anything, he just walked past them on the bridge. He was obviously cold and just trying to get back to his dorm. They said he was by himself, and when they looked back a minute later, he was gone. What happened in the next 1 to 2 minutes between when this couple passed him walking and when he should have returned to his dorm room is a mystery, especially because this couple said there was no other people or cars around. The police did not lock down Josh's room, which is something they have been widely criticized for the last 20 years. It was left open for anyone in that dorm to walk into. The police hold off on their search since it's late at night, but the next day, this is now 2 days since Josh disappeared, a big search took place, including Josh's family, officers on foot and on horseback, ATVs, helicopters, and student and campus staff volunteers. The most popular theory at the time is that Josh got drunk and fell into Stump Lake. That was the lake that the couple saw him on the footbridge, but Josh had already crossed it. The couple saw him walking towards his apartment building. What's he going to turn back around and fall in? The family was super upset about this theory because they believed there was foul play and that there's no way that Josh would just fall into a lake. Besides, the lake was frozen over. There were no large holes in the surface where someone had fallen in that they could see. Divers did go into the frozen lake and use sonar and other dredging equipment to scour the lake, but they found no trace of Josh. There were other lakes around that were searched in the days and the months after Josh's disappearance, and none produced any results. Even in the spring, when the waters had melted and all kinds of weird stuff floats up, nothing relating to Josh surfaced. A very special woman by the name of Patty Wetterling arrives to assist with the search and lend her expertise. This woman is the mother of Jacob Wetterling. Jacob Wetterling is famously known as an 11-year-old boy who was kidnapped from Paynesville, Minnesota in 1989. Paynesville is 30 minutes from Collegeville, where Josh disappeared. Trigger warning here. Jacob was missing for 27 years. It wouldn't be until 2016 when his remains were located. His killer admitted that back in 1989, he abducted him off of his bicycle, sexually assaulted, and killed him. It's a very sad story, and it really shows the evil of some humans. At the time of Josh's disappearance in 2002, Patty was 13 years into the search for her son, Jacob. She was an expert at this by now, so to have her there assisting with the search for Josh was truly admirable. She's an advocate for the missing and provided guidance and support to Josh's family. She has devoted her life to these kinds of cases after losing her little boy to a horrific murder. Patty's advice to young people is to use the buddy system, saying, quote, "The buddy system really does work, even when you're in college. Go out into the world, hold hands, and stick together." I wish I could meet this woman and just give her a hug. She has been through so much. Josh's dad feels like the police spent too much time focusing on the bodies of water when they should have been focusing on foul play. The huge college campus was meticulously combed through, but Josh could have been abducted and taken off the campus. But police seem to think he got drunk and fell in a lake. Police began looking into Josh's close friends. Everyone was accounted for, including Nick, who said he came home to the dorm around 2:30 a.m. Now, Katie says that Nick left her apartment around 1:30 a.m., so there is this 1-hour chunk of time missing. However, these two are college kids who have been drinking. It's totally possible they don't know for sure what time it was. In the past, I've totally not remembered if I came home at 1:30 or 2:30 a.m. I get it. This isn't a 5-hour window of missing time. This is just 1 hour. But Nick's key card knows the truth. Nick's key card showed he entered their dorm room at 2:42 a.m. So his story that he left Katie's around 2:30 is correct. Nick's dorm is a 10-minute drive from Katie's house, but Katie says he left at 1:30 a.m. Some friends of Josh tell police that they heard Nick and Josh having an argument the day before. The argument was about Katie, but Nick allegedly says that they weren't seeing one another, but they had just kissed a couple times. These two both denied that they were in a relationship. Nick is asked by police to take a polygraph, and initially he says he would, but then he decides that he's going to decline. Nick is a law student. He knows the deal. He says the reason he doesn't want to take the polygraph is because they are inaccurate. Don't worry, I'm not going to go on my polygraph rant during this episode because you've heard it a million times from me before. I'll spare you from having to hear it again, but you all know my thoughts on polygraphs. Anyway, Nick says if the polygraph gives a false positive, police would investigate him, and that would take away from the real suspect and the investigation into Josh. I can see his point if he's telling the truth. Basically, he thinks police will then focus so much on him and not pursue anyone else. Nick wants to find his friend, and he wants the police to leave him alone. Nick does end up getting ruled out since there wasn't any evidence connecting him to Josh's disappearance. Everyone at the party and all of Josh's friends and roommates were questioned. The detective noted that these students all had dreams and goals. He says 10 to 15 people wouldn't be able to stay silent if they knew something had happened to Josh. Josh had no history of depression, anxiety, or any mental illness. He had no history of drug use. Josh had a very strong mind. Remember, this is the high school valedictorian. He and Nick were captains of the college's mock trial team. He was 20 years old and a junior in college and ready to take on the world in just a couple years. Josh said in 15 years, when he turned 35, he planned to run for president. I know people could act like everything's okay and be suicidal, but it doesn't seem like Josh was hiding anything. In December 2002, a private search party has a bloodhound brought in to see if they could trace Josh's scent. The dog traced Josh's scent from the poker party apartment to Stump Lake and then to Josh's dorm, then to St. John's Abbey. Remember, St. John's Abbey is that monastery on campus where 100 monks live. The police were skeptical of the bloodhound the private team was using because it wasn't trained or certified. The dog had been successful in other searches, though. In fact, this dog, whose name is Hoover, set a world record because he successfully alerted to the remains of a missing fisherman. He was found beneath 13 inches of ice and 42 feet of water. Yeah, I'd say this dog was more than qualified. The crazy part about this particular search is not only did the dog find Josh's scent at the Abbey, but it also alerted to the scent of a man named Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins was a 21-year-old student at the University of Minnesota who disappeared 10 days before Josh did. It was Halloween night, and he had gotten kicked out of a bar where a Halloween party was going on. Chris walked away and vanished. Another college student by the name of Michael Knoll disappeared on November 6, which is right in the middle of that 10-day period between Chris and Josh. Michael was a student at the University of Wisconsin. All three were young college males within 100 miles of one another. All were around alcohol and bodies of water. Michael's body was found 5 months later in Wisconsin in a body of water. Chris Jenkins was found deceased in 2003 in the Mississippi River, but Josh has never been located, and this bloodhound just picked up both of their scents at the St. John's Abbey. This dog is scratching at the door trying to get inside the building, but they weren't allowed. In fact, they were asked to leave since dogs weren't allowed on the property. They called the police and they had to leave, which is weird because it wasn't like this dog was someone's pet. They're investigating a disappearance. The staff allowed the sheriffs to come back with their search dogs. It too picked up Josh's scent at the back of the building, but no other evidence was found. I don't know if Josh was religious or not, but I'm wondering if maybe he went there earlier in the day to pray or meet with one of the monks, which is why his scent was picked up there, or there's foul play. We learned that at the time of Josh's disappearance, there were some real allegations going on against the monks at this school. Several news stories had come out about allegations of sex abuse by the monks. More than 100 people had been accused of abuse dating all the way back to the 1960s. In fact, the priest who supervised Josh's area had multiple sexual misconduct allegations. Josh had recently learned of this huge sex abuse scandal happening at his school, and friends and family say he was irate. He even called his grandparents and told them about it. Josh supposedly told his mock trial team coach that he was going to write a research paper about it. He wanted to get to the bottom of it and have people held accountable for their crimes. Josh didn't like that there was this big secret about it on campus and wanted to be sure everyone knew that there was sex abuse allegedly going on. Today, there is a website devoted to this called Behind the Pine Curtain. The About section of the website states, "This website exists to validate the experiences and victims of sexual and other misconduct at St. John's." Obviously, Josh had recently learned about these allegations and wanted to do something to stop this abuse from continuing. Josh's room was open for weeks. Anyone in that dorm could have walked in. Nick says he was careful not to mess with any of Josh's stuff or use his computer. The police allowed Brian, Josh's dad, to take the computer and Josh's belongings home with him. I would like to know why police didn't do a forensic search on Josh's computer, but I'm leaning towards the fact that it was 2002 and they may have thought that a computer wouldn't contain valuable evidence. 2002 internet isn't like it is today. But Josh was ahead of his time and could easily find his way around the internet much better than I could in 2002. It would take years to get to exactly what was on Josh's computer. The timeline in this case is everything, so this next part gives me chills to speak about. Josh left the party a little after midnight. He never made it home during that 3 to 5 minute walk from the party to his dorm. We know this because his key card was never used. Nick's key card was the next one to be used, and that was at 2:42 a.m. Well, at 11:52 p.m., Josh's computer began playing music. In fact, it wasn't just playing music, it was skipping through songs, and then it would play a full-length song and then skip another. Someone was in his room manually using the computer. Another thing that freaks me out is that they learned that someone had used Internet Washer software on Josh's computer. It's a program that wipes internet history out, which is fine if Josh did that, but it was used days after Josh disappeared. This is why I'm so upset that police didn't seize the computer right away and treat his room as a crime scene. Although a more innocent explanation would be the joke that's been around forever: if something ever happens to me, make sure you delete my internet history. People don't want their families seeing all the weird stuff they were into. So maybe his friends thought they were doing him a favor. Believe me, if something happens to me, you guys are going to find all kinds of weird true crime searches on every device I have. The computer is sent to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and they are able to get into the computer and they find a lot of information. Some that could have something to do with his disappearance, or maybe not, but it was definitely interesting stuff. And the only reason why this stuff is released is because Josh is nowhere to be found, and this could possibly be tied into his disappearance. They found Adobe Photoshopped images made of Josh and his friends that were fake IDs. My guess is that they're super smart college kids who wanted to get into bars. They're only 20 years old, so they likely made these IDs that made them appear to be 21. Maybe he was selling them on campus. According to Unsolved Mysteries fandom, they learned that Josh had been spending a good chunk of time using Yahoo Personals. Yahoo Personals were like Tinder before Tinder was a thing, basically a prehistoric version of online dating. Josh had 3 profiles. One was a username by the name of Josh, along with his zip code. All the messages back and forth were normal sports and law talk. This seems to be the one Josh used searching for girls in the area. But they also found 2 other profiles Josh had created, both identified as females. One username was CoochieCoo2002, the other was GwenGirlBigJugs. Josh was talking to men on this website, but portraying himself as a woman. Josh had deleted a lot of these chats, but there were still records that he was conversing with others. He downloaded both heterosexual and homosexual pornography. His family and friends say Josh was not bisexual, gay, or questioning his gender. They have no idea why he would make these profiles using hot women's pictures and trying to pass them off as himself, except for maybe curiosity, or he was trolling them before trolling was a thing. We know he did have a 28-minute long phone conversation with a user from the website. He also reported a user for violating Yahoo Chat's terms of service just 12 days before he disappeared. Josh was spending time in chat rooms with gay men, lesbian women, straight people. He was kind of all over the place. In 2002, internet porn was a new thing, so it's possible Josh wanted to see what gay sex looked like, or possibly he really was gay or bisexual. Or he was questioning his gender, which is why he was posing as a woman looking for a male partner, not just with one profile, but with 2. This has detectives wondering if Josh had plans to meet someone that night he disappeared. Maybe that's why he left abruptly. Is it possible this person thought they were meeting a woman, and then here comes Josh, who is very much a male? Or did Josh portray himself as a man and was set to meet another man, and that man took him somewhere? There's no evidence of this, but without knowing what happened to Josh, we have to try to come up with theories. Investigators get with St. John's Life Safety Service, who was the security at the campus, and they look into any reports around the time of November 2002. They did find 2 reports of the same vehicle, an orange Pontiac Sunfire. They learned the driver was dropping a student off. There had to be more to these reports than an orange Pontiac Sunfire dropped off a student. Why would someone alert campus security? Depending on what source you look at, some say the driver just left, others say someone got out and ran. It's not real clear what was really happening, but he was reported to campus security twice. The driver's photo is compared to some of the men Josh was chatting with, and none are a match. In 2002, this is 20 years after Josh's disappearance, police release a photo collage of 28 men. These are photos of men he had saved on his hard drive. The police are asking the public to help identify the men in these photos because they want to know if any of them may have something to do with Josh's disappearance. Not for any other reason than Josh had their photos saved on his hard drive. The police said they didn't want to have to do this, but they have had no luck in identifying them. This really ticked off Josh's dad because Josh's case was set to be aired on the Unsolved Mysteries reboot on October 25th, 2002, and then days before the episode aired, the police released all these photos they've been holding on to since 2008. Brian alleged they were withholding these from everyone and then trying to pass them off as new evidence. There's so many different theories of what could have happened to Josh. Some suspect his roommate, others suspect it was the monks, others suspect it was someone he met online, some think he fell in the water, some think he left to go start a new life, which is why he was never found and why he was making fake IDs. Some think that something happened to him at the party and 10 to 15 people are covering it up, which is damn near impossible. There's several possibilities and no answers. St. John's University eventually applied for a restraining order against Josh's dad, Brian, because he kept showing up and wanting answers and searching around. I mean, can you blame the guy? This is his only child, and he's missing for the last 20 years. In 2024, Brian wrote a letter to the senators of Minnesota asking for their help with additional resources in locating his son. He asked them to put themselves in his shoes. He says, "My only child is missing. Without your support, I may never have the chance to help find Josh." All the kids moved on. Nick is a lawyer now. They have no idea what happened to their friend Josh back in 2002. It's so hard because Josh didn't do anything that night that all of us haven't done at least once. He walked to a party and then he left. I truly have no idea what could have happened to Josh. The police believe it was his internet activity that may have gotten him into trouble that night. I have to say I'm leaning towards that theory as well. I think Josh is somewhere away from the campus. Josh has never been found and is still very much a missing person to this day. He would be 42 years old today and well into his law and politics career. I truly want to believe that today in 2025, Josh is still with us, but it's hard because there's no evidence, and most people believe that he passed away in 2002. Josh, you are missed and you are loved by your family. They are still searching for you and hope to bring you home one day. That's it for this week, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care, and much love to you all.